Hello and welcome to Wildly Curious, a podcast that tells you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Laura.
And I'm Katy. And today is the season 11 finale, which is crazy.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about volcanoes.
Ended on a hot note.
Right? But we're going to talk about volcanoes and the surprising things they've made, buried, and accidentally made a little bit cooler. So some things. Some
positives. Yeah, there's like a lot of good about volcanoes and a lot of terrible things.
And a lot of really horrible things. So this is kind of like the kickoff to the season break. So like we said, this is this finale episode. Mm-hmm. And then just like we did, what was it? Was it the caves was the last break. And then we did kind of bogs and stuff. Yep. And so this is going to be the break because I was like, okay, caves. All right, bog. What else things can we find in other things? Volcano. So for this episode, then we're going to do just a very basic, broad overview of what a volcano is. What do they do? Because everybody, I think, knows what a volcano is.
Yeah, at your core, you've seen a volcano in a picture. It explodes and stay away from that lava.
Right? But like third grade science was a long time ago. Yeah. So we're going to just give a very brief overview, and then in those mini episodes, we're going to cover a variety of subjects, just like we did with caves, just like we did with bogs. I'm going to pick some, Laura's going to pick some, and it's just going to be scattered of things found in, near, around, anything related to just volcanoes.
And like this has already come up in past episodes, guys, like actually quite a bit. Remember in our How Earth Formed episode? Yeah. And then just in the dinosaur one we did recently where I was talking about the dinosaur equivalent of Pompeii where they found all those things, all the skeletons and fossils.
Yeah. Yep. So, without further waiting, nature news.
The direwolf thing.
Oh, yeah. I
feel like we should just weigh in on it because everybody's talking about it these days.
Everybody's talking about it.
And so if you haven't heard because your head is under a rock, they have they've claimed
not that you're buried in the sand. No, your head is under a rock.
That's not a saying. I just made it.
It's now my new saying.
What, your head under a rock?
It's so specific. Yeah. You don't live under a rock. Just your head is under a rock.
I combined the two. Yikes. But the claim is that they have resurrected the direwolf. And
de-extinct.
Yeah, that it's back and it is what it was. But I feel there needs to be real quick, we'll clarify, and then me and Katy can each give our opinion if they're even different. But basically, no, it is not exactly how it sounds.
De-extinct.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it is not a direwolf per se. Because de-extincting
it's not 100% direwolf.
It would be a clone. Right. It would just be you have found the DNA, you cloned it, and now you've got a new one. This is the closest they can come because what they found from direwolves is too deteriorated DNA-wise. So they just got to extrapolate and figure it out. So they decided they found some gray wolves. They went into the embryos and they messed around with the DNA to make certain tweaks that would make these gray wolves more similar to a direwolf.
Yeah.
So some people.
So essentially they had, let's say if you have a total of 10 pieces, all right, it makes up like a DNA. We have, of the direwolf, we had max 2-3 pieces of that DNA. Yeah. The rest of it is still
just gray
wolves.
So some people are like, well, but it is now a direwolf. And some people are like, no, it's just a genetically modified gray wolf, which is the side that I'm on. It's cool.
Yeah, I think it's really neat. I think where Colossal could be doing better is they do, because again, I'm in Texas here. They're not far from me. They're doing some really, really, really awesome stuff that they're not talking enough about. Now, of course, whenever you bust out headlines like the extinct animals, this is what the media is going to catch hold of. I get that. But they're doing a lot of really awesome stuff with genetic variation to help populations within species. So they're doing a lot of really cool conservation-based things that unfortunately hasn't quite caught the same media attention, like I said.
Right.
And they're doing some other things, too, that they're basically, how can I say this? They're like, yes, they're getting big donors to do this stuff, which again, there's another controversy there. People are like, can't that money go towards conservation efforts? Now, they are doing a lot of stuff with conservation. They are doing a lot of stuff with a variety. They did something with frogs here in Texas. Like they are doing a lot with conservation. It just happens to be this is what caught the news. But they're doing, and they're selling a lot of patents and things to subsidize that income because they have people and staff and everything like that. So they're doing a lot of really good and cool things that haven't kind of caught wind, that they haven't like been talking enough about because, of course, hey, we brought back our wolves was a lot catchier for media.
Yes, plus because of Game of Thrones and the fact that George R.R. Martin did donate and all this kinds of stuff. But at least, so they've tried this in the past with tweaking some genes, and usually the babies die pretty quickly. These at least have survived at least 6 months, so that's a good sign. So we have yet to see what they're going to look like as adults. They have in the past, not this company necessarily, but we have brought an animal back from extinction. It was just extinct 5 years before that. So because we have that DNA in pristine condition, we can
it was a lot
bring
easier.
things back. Like we could bring white rhinos back if we wanted to, or whatever. There are some animals that we could bring back right now. It's just cool to think about animals from a long time ago.
Yeah. And I think again, like I said, the science behind what they did is really, really awesome. I think them being able to prove that they could do it. I think in their messaging, if they would have been, yes, it wouldn't have been as catchy, but a little bit more forward with, okay, this is not actually a full de-extinction, but explain what was going on. I don't think there would have been as, but again, it's hindsight's 2020. They would have caught on to something else, but they're doing a lot of really cool things with conservation, and they talk about it on their website. If you guys go check out their websites, Colossal Biosciences, go check them out. They are doing some cool things. They did just catch a lot of heat because people are like, well, you brought this back. What about everything else? Guys, they are doing a lot of
what about everything else? Get on it. Also, though, there are some things we absolutely should not bring back, people. Like, there's, don't do it.
But they're saying, like, things now. Everybody's, oh, well, why can't you take all that billions and billions of dollars? Listen, some of their biggest donors are wealthy multi-millionaires, billionaires. Listen, guys, they're not going to donate to save some random. They want to donate to
they have their
this,
own agendas.
All right?
Yeah.
Exactly. They have their own agendas, which are going to be the big. What are they going to be? The big stories
they want to bring
they can get their name
back.
on those things.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. So what Colossal does is that, yes, they are doing that thing to satisfy the donors, but then they're doing a bunch of other smaller, like really cool things because they got to make other money somehow. They can't completely rely on just these donors. So, you know, they're getting there. I mean, they're really one of the few companies here in the States that's doing something like this. And so I think they're going to continue to evolve and trial and error as far as because I see it from a science communication side, of course. And so I see, you know, this is the big thing, the first big thing that they did. And hopefully next time when they roll out something, they'll tweak their story and storytelling a little bit. So we'll see. I think it's neat. I think they could have rolled out the communication of it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But again, anytime we roll out something that's this big and controversial, you're going to have people that are going to slice and dice it no matter what.
I am really excited to see what they look like when they grow up. Will the size or will the muscle, like, how different will their structure be? Or will they just look like a giant wolf? Yeah.
But I saw that, you know, I think it's going to look like a giant wolf because I saw the actual percentage of dire wolf in there is so minimal. I use the example of 10 and 2 out of 3. No, it's like way less than that. It's 1/10,000th, I think, dire wolf. So it's very, very small. So it's going to look like a gray wolf is my prediction anyway. But again, the CRISPR technology they're using, like what they're doing, the implications that it can have for other things nowadays is huge.
It's just splicing and dicing DNA is pretty incredible. I mean, got some terrifying repercussions too, but also really like some amazing ones.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey everyone, quick favor to ask. As some of you might have noticed, our YouTube channel recently got deleted, which is super frustrating, but we're back with a brand new channel and we need your help. If you've ever enjoyed an episode of Wildly Curious, we would love for you to subscribe to our new YouTube channel. It only takes a second, but it really, really helps us in getting things back up and running. We'll keep this reminder in the episodes for a little bit, but the sooner everyone listening hops over to subscribes, the faster we can rebuild and keep bringing you all the weird, wild, and wonderful science that Laura and I keep bringing you. So hit pause for 1 second, search the Wildly Curious podcast on YouTube, smash that subscribe button, and seriously guys, it would make a huge difference and we appreciate it more than you know. All right, back to the show. Yeah, but the reality is you got to get funding somehow. Like they're not just, you know what I mean? Look at what's happening with the government that's slicing and dicing everything. You're not going to get government funding from this. You got to bring in money somehow, and it's going to be through the de-extinction. But they're doing a lot of awesome things and other things. So hopefully they'll just this will maybe bring to light some of those other things that they're doing, maybe, because it is really cool. But so yeah, cool. Nature news. Aliens are still around, in case anyone's wondering.
Volcanoes.
Alrighty. Well, let's talk about volcanoes. So just like we do with everything else, Laura and I are just going to bounce back and forth here and go over. I'm going to talk about what a volcano is, and we're just going to break it down. Like I said, bounce back and forth.
Nothing too heavy.
No. This is pretty, again, 3rd grade science class. If you go way back to then, I don't even remember who my 3rd grade teacher is, but let's start with the obvious question. What even is a volcano? At its core, a volcano is a crack in the earth where molten rock, gas, and ash escape from the inside of the planet.
It's a pimple.
Simply put, that's basically it. It's Earth's pressure release valve. When things get a little too heated under the Earth's crust, and literally when it gets too heated, the pressure builds until it finds a weak spot to steam, pop it out, lava, and in some cases, just explosions. But volcanoes definitely aren't just random holes that are shooting fire. They're built sometimes very, very slowly, sometimes very explosively, by the very material that they eject, the lava. And when you look at one, you're seeing, of course, not just the mountain, but the history of eruptions over time, layer by layer. It's kind of like a geology version of a child's temper tantrum scrapbook. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the past story looking at the volcano.
Of it just freaking out and it just being
because like some
layered...
of them are tall and skinny, and then you can see where they exploded off one side, or like the craters that they leave behind, or...
Yeah, so it's really cool. So what are the parts of the volcano? So deep below the Earth's surface, you're going to have the magma chamber. Again, I feel like this picture that back in 3rd grade drawing of a volcano you have, all right? Magma chamber, which is the molten rock reservoir down below the Earth's crust. And that magma travels up through the conduit or the main vent, like the chimney of it. If it erupts, that magma becomes lava. And depending on how explosive things get, you also might see volcanic gases, ash clouds, and chunk of rock blasted into the sky. And I'll go over a few examples later on. So at the top of that volcano is a crater, which may or may not be perfectly centered, like Laura said, depending on how dramatic the last eruption was. And not all volcanoes are exactly the same, and their shape definitely tells you a lot about what to expect if they erupt. So very quickly, you're going to talk about 3 different types. There's the stratovolcanoes, which are your classic cone-shaped giants, the tall, pointy, the kind of like volcano. Scary. Yeah, the typical volcano. So they're the ones that typically go boom quickly. So you think of your Mount Fuji, Mount St. Helens is a huge one here in the States, or in the Disney's Lava short.
Dude, Laura used to watch that on repeat. On repeat.
It is so good. I don't know if I can handle it on repeat, but if you guys have not seen that Disney short of I Lava You, it's so good. But these ones typically they pack the powerful punch that you won't forget about, and these are typically the big ones that make the news. Shield volcanoes are very wide and low. They are like giant lava pancakes, essentially. They don't explode as much as they, like, I hate the word ooze.
Ew,
but they ooze
because I just keep thinking, I mean, volcanoes are just like the pimples of Earth. So now I'm just thinking an oozy one.
Yeah.
Gross.
But it's so gross.
It's true.
But it is. No, it is. But yes, think of a lot of the ones in Hawaii that they're massive, but they kind of erupt a little bit slow and steady of eruption here. And then there are cinder cones. These are the short stack ones. They're like, I don't know. I had really good other examples for other ones, like a speed bump of a volcano. It's smaller. It's steeper. It's made of a lot of loose rocks and usually formed from one single dramatic eruption. So whenever we say volcano, we're talking about the whole spectrum of all of these different things. And as destructive as they can be, volcanoes are actually incredibly structured for what they do. It might seem like it's haphazardly done, but it's really not. So they're messy on the outside of what we see, but inside there's a whole system, a process, there's a design. There's a whole reason behind why these things are. They're not just explosion. They're doing a lot of really cool things with Earth that are just seem very dramatic, but there's actually rhythm and rhyme behind it.
Yeah. Well,
so that's what at its essence, that's very scratch the surface of what a volcano is.
And that leads directly into mine, which is where can you find them? And so like Katy was saying, it seems a volcano is the essence of chaos, right?
Yeah.
Like a tornado kind of. It's just all, you don't even know. It could erupt at any second. Could be now, could be in a couple thousand years, who knows? But there are certain, not rules that volcanoes follow, but kind of.
But kind of, yeah.
And,
kind of
and
rules,
one of them is where you can even find them, because volcanoes don't usually just pop up out of nowhere. Typically.
Yeah. Typically.
So.
Which is also terrifying to think about. If it.
Because like they can be, but it's not.
It typically it typically forms and it's predictable. But it's also science, and there's always those rule breakers out there. So it's.
When we talked about the early Earth and the formation of Earth and like the geology at its core, like the story of volcanoes is the story of how Earth forms.
Yeah,
it's constantly melting, breaking down, forming. It's the process of rocks, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
So if you think about Earth, so plate tectonics, I remember specifically having to write a paper on this to get into my 9th grade advanced Earth system science.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got this. I had to write it over the summer. Like it was like a summer assignment.
Oh, man.
Nerdy Laura was like, I got it.
I got this, yeah.
But plate tectonics, real quick, is just, imagine that the Earth is just, it's a liquid ball. And it's just covered in little tiny plates. I think of it like ice on top of a lake that's been cracked into pieces.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, that's a good
And so like
that's a
things
good
are
example.
constantly shifting on essentially a liquid. We never feel it moving, except for when there's earthquakes, but they are always moving. And so these plates, some of them are running into each other. Some of them are ripping apart from each other. And some of them are just cruising by each other, making friction. So where do you find the volcanoes? In 2 specifically of those spots. When plates converge, okay, come together, you can have a couple of things happen. But one of the things that happens is that one plate goes underneath of another plate. Those of you who are watching this on YouTube will have an advantage because you can see my gestures. So one plate goes under another plate, and this is called a subduction zone, where the plate goes underneath. So this plate's going underneath, this plate kind of rising a little bit, but not a lot. Really, as this goes down, it's just melting into more magma. So it's just disappearing. It's not totally like shoving the other one up. But this process is causing a lot of heat and a lot of friction. And this is where a lot of the classic volcanoes form, at this subduction zone, because it's just this constant friction and collision.
Yeah.
One is just sinking underneath of another one. So this is where a lot of mountain ranges form, because again, you got 2 things collide. Something's got to happen. Usually something goes up. So like the Andes Mountains and things like that. But so if you're at the edge of a plate, which you can look up online, am I at the edge of a plate? Well, probably you're around volcanoes, but it's because one's going under another. Or the other one that can happen a lot is when they diverge. So when these plates are pulling apart from each other, new stuff, it's just creating a void, and new stuff has to be made.
Yeah.
So it's getting thinner, 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 thinner. So that's letting the magma come up, 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 up. And then it just starts kind of oozing out that top, right? And creating more and more. So it's creating these mid-ocean ridges, because typically where this is happening is under the water, thankfully. It's not just happening on land. But it's ripping. The oceans are slowly.
In the middle of Minnesota.
Right, the oceans are slowly ripping apart. And terrifying. And then new stuff is coming up and forming new land underwater. So in the mid-Atlantic, there's a plate out there, and so that's what's happening there. But it's constantly forming new things. And then, of course, you've got your crazy nature outliers, which is just these hot spots. It's pretty random. I don't know if they actually know why that volcanoes, but I guess wherever the crust is a little bit too thin, for whatever reason, when it formed, it was just too
Volcano
thin.
is just like, I should be here right now.
Yeah.
like
They found a thin spot, and the magma was like, this is my chance, and just punches right up.
Yeah.
So it's just where a single little plume comes up. And Hawaii is the classic example of this. So just imagine one little spurt, okay? But remember, our plate is moving. So as the plate is moving, the spurt's not moving. it is just like carving a new path through this plate. For whatever reason, this is strong enough to do that. And so you're farming the Hawaiian Island chains because the plate is moving, the plume is steady. So it's just creating volcano after volcano after volcano after volcano, which is super cool. But again, kind of scary because you just never know where these are going to
just got boom, a new island.
But if you guys have ever heard of, well, we'll get into that in a second, but there are some really famous or epic parts of planet Earth where you can find a lot of volcanoes, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. So, why do then they erupt? Laura talked a little bit about it, but like most disasters, it comes down to pressure and poor containment. That's really all it comes down to.
Pressure and poor containment.
Like, inside the Earth, you've got the magma, like Laura said, the molten rock, which is full of dissolved gases and water vapor, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide. And as the magma rises towards the surface, the pressure decreases and those gases start to come out of the solution, essentially. It's basically like a shaken soda bottle.
Right, but now it's right. Or like it was shaken and now it's starting to settle, but the bubbles are all coming up. Yeah.
Yep, it's all coming up. So the type of eruption you get, whether it's slow, scenic lava flow or full-on apocalypse feeling, depends on two things: how much gas is trapped and how thick the magma is. So let's talk viscosity, which I know everybody woke up this morning and this is what Katy
just love that word,
viscosity to me here.
I do love viscosity.
Yeah, but
that word is not used enough in everyday language.
It's really not. It's really
but
not.
It does come up occasionally for me, weirdly enough. It's usually about like maple syrup or something, or molasses. But and then I'm like,
how often do you talk about molasses?
Very rarely, but maple syrup more than
often
that.
enough. Yeah.
Viscous.
So viscosity, it's the measure of how sticky, thick a liquid is. Honey is more viscous than water. Magma, same sort of idea. So if the magma is runny, like more like that's
really it. Yeah, it's a runny one.
Yeah, more like in Hawaii, the gas escapes quickly. You get the slow, like I said earlier, the ooze of the lava.
Yeah.
And
so I wonder why is there more water content in some of them? I guess I wonder. There's got to be a reason, but too complicated for now.
So you get the slow oozing, like I said, of lava, which is the stuff that's, I don't want to say it. It's spectacular because this is the one that everybody goes to go take pictures of. Yeah, you can actually get close
to this lava.
Yeah, because it's not booming,
volatile,
catastrophic kind of thing.
Viscous, not volatile.
Yes. Ooh,
that's a good t-shirt or good phrase. I'm viscous, not volatile.
Yeah. But if the magma is thick and sticky, it basically holds on to that gas. Pressure builds and builds and builds. And then when it finally does let go, that's not the lava lamp flowing. That is like boom, explosion. So let me give you two real world examples real quick that sits on very opposite ends of this lava drama scale here.
Lava drama.
So the first one is, we keep bringing up Hawaii, but I mean, for at least America, that's our one of our most well-known volcanoes. I'm going to talk about the other one here in a second. But this one is one of the more chill volcanoes. It's constantly erupting.
You're like, you can count on it to just never stop oozing.
Pretty ew. I mean, essentially, but so gross. Because it's just always flowing, essentially, of lava. It builds lands, it lights up the sky. Like, it's really cool. It's a tourist, you can go take selfies. It's very picturesque, but also non-threatening.
Yeah.
So this is if you want to go see a volcano, Hawaii, here you go. Now, flip side of that, Mount St. Helens, 1980, this was not a chill volcano. It was the stratovolcano with the viscous magma and a whole lot of trapped gas. Scientists knew that it was rumbling, but they didn't know like what the pressure was building and they also didn't know that it was building out sideways like it was. And so when it erupted, the entire north face of the mountain collapsed literally from a blast. it reduced 1,300 feet of the summit into a steaming crater and leveled hundreds of square miles of forest and
You can still see on Google Maps, if you look on Google Maps, the lakes at the edges of the blast are still full of dead trees. And that was in the 80s.
Yes, which is, insane.
Like the devastation is still there.
Yeah, and very, very visible. And then if we're talking same direction as Mount St. Helens, not within our lifetime, but even more dramatic, is Krakatoa in 1883. So this blast was heard over 3,000 miles away, which is insane. But that eruption was so powerful, it changed global temperatures.
It caused like a mini ice age.
Created tsunamis and literally darkened skies around the world. It was like Earth just, I don't know, cleared its throat and everybody heard it because it was that dramatic.
You know what? The only way the Earth, if climate change just keeps happening, man, just need a couple of eruptions. Just cool it right down.
Right. So why, all of that to say, why do volcanoes erupt? Because the Earth is messy and it has to. Like the gas.
Give it a freaking break, okay?
Yeah, right. It's doing the best it can.
It's messy and it has to erupt every now and then. As all of us moms are just like, Mother Earth is doing the best she can.
Yeah.
But she deserves to erupt every once in a while.
This would make an amazing cartoon of Mother Earth just being like, bah, and just
every once in a while, man.
Yeah, right. Just loses it. All the humans were destroying her, and she just fed up with our bullshit, and then she just loses her cool every once in a while. But the gases expand, like in the words of Shrek, better out than in, because magma isn't always good at holding things together, and that gas needs to go somewhere, so it finds a weak point and it goes. So it just needs to let go of that steam. So that's why it erupts.
Cool. Well, where does it erupt? In not just where they form, but some famous spots, all right? Which are some famous hot zones that shape our world. But, okay, we're going to bring up Hawaii again. Hawaii is a famous place because of that slow, steady land building, island by island, layer by layer. So it's literally, this is the perfect example of a hot spot, which is that island chain forming. That's a hot spot. That's not at the edge of a plate. Now, on the flip side of that is like the very famous, you can literally see the outline of the edge of one of these tectonic plates if you look at where the Ring of Fire is. So, of course, it's a Johnny Cash song. Although, I don't know how many of our listeners would actually know that. Depending on our demographics.
I was going to say, our demographics show that a lot of people should know.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, over 75% of Earth's active volcanoes encircle the Pacific Ocean. Why? Because it's the plate. So it's all those zones right around the edges. You just see all of them. It's like little lit up hot spots because of this constantly changing, shifting plate stuff. This is where a lot of the big eruptions are happening. Yeah. So the viscosity must be higher here. And then, of course, you have Iceland, which is also really well known for its volcanic activity. You can go see volcanoes in Iceland, too. If you don't want the heat of Hawaii, go to Iceland. So it sits on the mid-Atlantic range. So this is the opposite. Remember how we talked about the subduction zone? Now this is the divergent zone. So it's just like the bubbling up because of the tear. So it's tearing apart and creating new land at the same time. Pretty cool. Okay, so volcanoes, as Katy was saying, and with these sections of the world that are really high in volcanic activity, why is any of that important? Because it's literally building our world. Katy was saying there are agents of chaos, but they also shape new things. So literally creating new land, like we've been saying. So when magma reaches the surface, it cools, and then it basically just turns into rock. And specifically, if you listen to one of our past episodes, it turns into igneous rock, which is made from volcanoes. So that's like fresh new rock and fresh new soil and things like that. So, for example, a super new, relatively new place is called Surtsey Island in Iceland, which basically was created in 1963. So it's just, boop, new spot. The underwater volcano just erupted for months and then just came right up out of the sea. So scientists have been able to look at that island and see literally the formation of a new ecosystem because it just popped out of the ocean. So they can see what would Earth have looked like brand spanking new for the most part. Of course, there's going to be more interference at work now, but essentially. Same with, of course, Hawaii. All of Hawaii was formed by this. And then not only does it form the rock, but it is also volcanic soil, and it's really good soil. So after the volcano erupts, volcanic ash rains down, typically, if it's a big one.
Yeah.
And that ash eventually breaks down into really mineral-rich soils. It's, if you've ever seen where volcanoes are, it's black soil. It contains potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, all which plants really need and love. And so it's incredibly fertile soil. So a lot of those volcanic islands are able to grow amazing stuff and are very lush places, not just because of the climate, but also because of the soil. A classic example of that's not necessarily tropical is Mount Etna in Italy. It's famous for its vineyards, right? Like you can grow some awesome grapes and make some awesome wine because that's volcanic soil. But just like all soil, you can eventually drain it from minerals if you're not reestablishing the soil every once in a while. And so people choose to live near volcanoes because of that. If you're a farmer, you're like, well, maybe I'll risk it if it means that you can grow some awesome stuff. And then every once in a while, sometimes nature just needs a reboot. And so just like with fire, we've talked about in the past, a lot of these disasters we see are not good for people, but are good for the planet. So same thing with a fire. After this eruption and a wipeout, you get to start over with this mineral-rich soil. So Katy was saying with Mount St. Helens, again, this is a story of absolute devastation. And apparently scientists thought it would take centuries to recover. They were like, it is blasted. Nothing's ever going to grow here again. And within months, new plants started growing. And animals came back because I guess they were like, apparently gophers came out of the ground because they survived. Just, can you imagine?
Jeez.
You pop your head up to the absolute devastation of your entire, like coming out of a bunker during the apocalypse.
I know, right?
Life is going to find a way.
Yep.
So yeah, they can be destructive, but they can also, you can flip that on its end. And just with all things in life, good a lot of time comes with bad. It's not just one or the other. And so sometimes they form new land and give new chances for plants and new species to form and grow and can even create thriving ecosystems.
So I do have an answer about the oozing and the viscosity here. It mostly has to do with, yes, it's the tectonic plates and everything we've talked about, but it also has to do with the silica and the temperature.
Okay.
And that's what causes,
so how much silica is in the rock that was just melted? Essentially.
Yeah. And then that ends up being, so like, let's say the convergent boundaries that we were just talking about, where one plate goes under the other, like the ring of fire, the crust melts and brings in extra material, including lots of silica.
That makes sense. And thickens it.
Yep. Add in lower temperatures and suddenly that magma gets way stickier.
Right. Because silica is what quartz and everything is made out of. So I guess it's right. It's just adding ingredients in. You've made a thicker batter. Whereas probably at those divergent zones and in Hawaii where it's just bubbling up, nothing was melted to create that. It's forming from nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. That totally tracks.
Yeah. So when magma is high in silica and low temperature, it becomes super viscous, which is too thick to let gases escape easily. That's why stratovolcanoes like Mount St. Helens, Mount Fuji don't just simmer. They
and they're always almost always found at those subduction zones because of the. Okay, cool.
Yep. Yeah. Alrighty, so we went over what volcanoes are, why they erupt, but now let's just talk about a glimpse of what we're going to be talking about the next few weeks, which is just some weird science of volcanoes. Because we talked a little bit about lava and ash, but there's a lot more to it. So let's talk with something that sounds fake, but it's very real, blue lava.
Yes, I've seen pictures of it.
Yeah, it is pretty neat. So there's a volcano in Indonesia called the Kawah Yenj. And when it erupts at night, it glows a bright electric blue. Not because the lava itself is blue. Lava is still red, molten rock. So what's happening is that this volcano is leaking sulfur gases at such high temperatures. They ignite when it hits the air, and the result, boom, blue flames, sometimes over 16 feet high, which kind of go across the surface of the lava. And so it looks like it's the lava, but it's really just the
gas
very,
burning.
very,
That was like the best part of chemistry class, is getting to hold different chemicals into the flame and see them change color.
Yeah, heck yes. Something else, and we just talked about a few weeks ago, was weather. Volcanic lightning.
Yeah.
So in the middle of an eruption, when a volcano explodes, it hurls ash, dust, gas into the air, millions of tiny particles all rubbing past each other at insane speeds. And that friction definitely builds up static electricity. Boom, lightning strikes straight out of an ash cloud.
I mean, can you even imagine? You're already thinking like this is the end of the world, but it is loud. And then, there's ash raining down. There's lightning. You'd be like, this is definitely the gods. Like,
no, right? Exactly. I can totally see if you have zero information and all this stuff is happening, blood rain, volcanoes exploding, lightning. Yeah, I would be freaking out too. So there's a spot, it happens most often, the volcanic lightning with explosive eruptions like Mount Redoubt in Alaska or Mount Sakajima in Japan, where the ash columns are so intense, the clouds basically start, I don't know, they converge and boom, and lightning, just consistent there. All right, so yeah, I just wanted to briefly go over a few of the weird things here.
Well, I will take us home with that's pretty much the story of volcanoes, but if that kind of I was trying to think of how to transition, and it just wasn't going to be good. It was going to be like, and if that's got you all hot and bothered, you better listen to the next episode. But
I mean,
our mini series is going to be about volcanoes, but whatever me and Katy want to talk about, like the bog or the cave thing, right? We set of parameters for each other, essentially, where it's okay, it has to do with a volcano. It could be natural or cultural or like whatever, but it has to do with that habitat or ecosystem or whatever it is. So it might be centered around weird things that have been found in volcanoes. It might be the history that was impacted by a volcano. It could be fossilized animals, whatever, just something volcano related.
You're going to have to tune in to find out. Yeah. Because Laura and I love the weirder, the better, the odder.
I don't even know what it's going to be yet. Right now, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, right. I found some good ones. So I can promise you some of these are going to be really good because I have some really good ideas of things that I didn't know about.
Cool. That's what I love. Man, that's what I love about this podcast. Is I think a lot of people are like, why you're doing it and why do you like to keep doing it? And it's because the novelty never wears off, because I learn new things every time we do these episodes.
Yeah.
We're scientists and we know some things about a little bit of everything, but it's the deep dives that I'm like, whoa, or like a concept that I've never even thought about.
Or just science changes. Yeah. I mean, glowing toe hairs from bats. That's new.
Brand spanking new. Heard it on this podcast probably first.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Some really cool things happen, and science changes the more we find out about the world around us. And so that's why we love it. So yeah, season 11, guys, this is it. Thank you everybody for listening. Thank you guys for bringing back our YouTube channel. So we're not at the number of subscribers we were whenever it got deleted. I'm not going to talk about that again, but we are. But we are way higher in views and watch time, and our downloads from the podcast are going. We're in 107 countries now around the world.
Keep on listening.
Yeah, right? And keep talking to people about it. Our downloads are just skyrocketing. And so, yeah, guys, we just thank you again for wrapping up and helping us wrap up season 11. Crazy. Again, we're not going anywhere. We're going to keep doing these mini episodes. So make sure you guys hop on over to YouTube if you haven't yet. Make sure you subscribe to us, please. We're gaining a lot of traction over there, and which is translating into views of the longer episodes here, which is great. And that's what we want to see, is just increasing that curiosity. So thank you guys for everything.
Yeah.
Good.
We always like to keep you guys on your toes. So season 12 will still bring new stuff, not just new topics, but also like just some new and exciting things that we've been thinking.
Some very new and exciting things. Yeah. So thank you for reminding me on that. So make sure you guys are listening to the mini episodes, because we're going to be teasing some things that are going to be brand new for season 12. I'm excited.
I am too.
You guys should be excited. And all of those, the people that then end up supporting us on Patreon, they're going to get a sneak peek at all that too. So if you're able to support us over there, because this stuff costs money, go ahead and go support us and help us out. And until then, next week, it's going to be explosive. That's what I'm...
See you guys then.
I had to throw in one horribly cheesy joke.
Perfect.
So,
bye, everybody.
Bye.